To the White House, America couldn't help but notice her sense of style. Every woman wanted to emulate the Jackie Kennedy look that designer Ole Cassini created for her. Jackie's style greatly affected Hollywood, and friends say that is one thing she will always be remembered for.
The real Jackie was a girl of extremely good taste that got the golden opportunity.
I have to use 3 words: style, elegance, and class.
Everything she did was done with extreme dignity and with a rightness to it, you know, even to planning in a moment of terrible grief, the kind of a state funeral that a man of Kennedy's stature deserved. I was enormously impressed with her.
She was a model. You know, and they've even, you know, all the movies they've made about her, you know, using her as the model, they've never come up to the reality of it. I mean, it's always been kind of a facsimile.
Because of John Kennedy's beauty and hers, and it was very, very glamorous. And so it was like a great movie, watching a great movie.
I think her charm really exuded from her heart.
I won a contest to go meet this lady, and then I met the first lady. And so my mother had named me after, and I told her all about it. She was very sweet. She talks very softly in a whisper. And I just thought she was great, and it's the end of an era.
So many fond memories, and we will all, of course, miss her very much.
Henry Morgan, best known for his witty performances as a panelist on quiz shows I've Got a Secret and What's My Line, died of lung cancer yesterday in New York. He was 79.
Is he a actor?
Yes, sir.
Is he in the movies?
Yes, sir.
Well, that narrows it down to about 6 million guys. Let's see.
America and the world mourn the passing of a woman known for her style. And today, we will look back at her remarkable life on Inside Edition, straight ahead.
We got the story.
Next flight to Chicago.
We gotta go live.
As the nation mourns the death of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, those closest to her tell Inside Edition of her grace and courage.
She kept that privacy, and the press respected her and admired her, and the public adored her because she became more and more mysterious as the years went on.
Today, a moving tribute to the lady who set the standard for America to follow.
Welcome to Inside Edition. I'm Craig Rivera. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis lived her final weeks as she had the rest of her life, with quiet dignity and fortitude. Her death at age 64 has touched us all, and we will reflect on her accomplishments shortly. Bill O'Reilly is also joining us from London. Bill?
Today we are reporting from the Tower of London, one of the great symbols of British tradition. A bit later on, we'll take you north of here for the most unusual fox hunt you'll ever see. No foxes. The object is to chase down people. But first, let's go back to New York, where Craig Rivera is standing by. Craig.
Bill, she was in the White House less than 3 years, and yet Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis will be remembered as our country's most beloved First Lady. Outside her New York City apartment, the press and mourners are still keeping vigil. Few people ever got to know her personally. Still, many of us feel we've lost someone very close. Joe Loy remembers the woman we all called Jackie.
Last night at around 10:15, my mother passed on. She was surrounded by her friends and her family and her books and the people and the things that she loved.
For more than a generation, she has been America's unwilling icon. She became the most popular First Lady in history. Her style epitomized an era. Her courage during times of tragedy earned her the admiration of the world. Born Jacqueline Bouvier 64 years ago, she grew up in a privileged family of status in New York. In 1951, the year she graduated from George Washington University, she met a charismatic young senator at a dinner party, John F. Kennedy. But John Davis, Jackie's cousin, who wrote a book about the Kennedys, recalls that at first, Jackie had her doubts.
Oh, you know, he's very charming, but he's so vain. He is always having his hair done specially and puffed up for the cameras. She said he thinks he's going to be president someday.
At just 24, Jackie married the dashing Kennedy, who was 12 years her senior.
How long did you know each other before you were married?
We knew each other about a year.
Where did you go on your honeymoon? We went to Acapulco, Mexico.
Jackie became a political asset by John's side.
We visited 184 communities, and I think slept in nearly every city in Massachusetts.
After their first child died prematurely, Caroline was born in the winter of 1957. Soon after, they began campaigning as a family.
Pleasure to have you here, and I want you to meet my daughter Caroline and my wife Jackie.
How do you do? I'm glad you had a chance to see something in the Senate.
When he made a run for the presidency in 1960, Kennedy aides feared the public would find Jackie too pretty and too upscale. She proved them all wrong. While Jack won the votes, she won the hearts of America. JFK became the youngest elected president in history. John Jr. was born within weeks. There hadn't been toddlers running around the corridors of the White House for some time. By the time the Kennedys celebrated their first White House Christmas, glamorous Jackie was already making her mark.
She was a whole new, fresh breath of air.
Letitia Baldridge was the Miss Manners of her day and Jackie's social secretary. She says Jackie brought an air of culture and sophistication to the White House.
She brought great musicians and poets and playwrights and everybody to the White House.
In 1962, Jackie totally redecorated America's most famous residence and brought TV cameras inside for a special White House tour.
I feel so strongly that the White House should have as fine a collection of American pictures as possible. It's so important, the setting in which the presidency is presented to the world.
With her own inimitable style, Jackie became America's premier trend-setting First Lady.
There's no question that Mrs. Onassis was probably the greatest fashion icon that ever lived.
2 years ago, I said that, introduced myself in Paris by saying that I was the man who had accompanied Mrs. Kennedy to Paris. I'm getting that same sensation as I travel around Texas.
1963 was the year triumph turned to tragedy. First, Jackie's fourth child, Patrick, died 3 days after he was born. Then the profound tragedy in Dallas, the assassin's bullet that changed American history and rocked the world. Though grief-stricken, Jackie maintained her grace and dignity throughout the ordeal, earning her further admiration that would outlive her. In a surprising move, 5 years later, Jackie married again, this time to a man 28 years older, the Greek shipping tycoon Aristotle Onassis.
He felt in some ways he'd been tricked into the marriage, which was totally untrue. But in his thinking, the way he worked it out, he should never have married her. And I think Jackie felt the same way too.
When Aristotle died 7 years later, Jackie was an ocean away in New York. She was launching a career in publishing. And of all things, Jackie O became a single working mother.
It was Jackie that let women go to work. When Mrs. Onassis entered the workforce, it signaled to women it was okay to go to work.
But over the last 10 years, friends say that most of all, Jackie cherished her privacy. She liked nothing more than blending in anonymously to enjoy life's simple pleasures, like standing in line to buy ice cream with her grandchildren, or galloping full speed on a spirited horse. But she also found great happiness with her companion of 12 years, Maurice Templesman, a Belgian-born diamond dealer. They were seen with Caroline strolling in Central Park just this past Sunday. But the very next day, she was back in the hospital. Her cancer had spread. The doctors said they could do no more. On Wednesday, she came home to die here at a residence on New York City's Fifth Avenue. Her children and family rallied to her side.
It's a very difficult time for Jackie and for the family, and I think we all just wish her a great deal of love, and there was a great, very warm feeling of family and love that was in her room this morning.
If there is one thing Jackie Kennedy Onassis has taught her family, friends, and the world, it's how to deal with the loss of a loved one. But no one was prepared for her sudden death last night.
She did it in her own way and on her own terms, and we all feel lucky for that. And now she's in God's hands.
Jackie Kennedy Onassis was a paradox, the most public but very private figure the world has known. She was the closest thing to a queen that America ever had. She's left us now, but her legend will outlive us all. There will never be another Jacqueline Kennedy.